Holland Diane came to work with me this morning, I just filmed it. Linda is in the doll shop. The wig cap is antique fabric and it's on an antique body. And then I realized this is a fake. So I've seen a couple good fakes, but for the most part, you can just tell.
If I put there, compared to here. They put this on an antique shoulder plate.
Hi there, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, a special warm welcome to you. I am so happy to see you. My name is Rachel and I am tuning in live from my doll shop out here in Denver, Colorado. We do all kinds of wonderful doll things and put it on the internet. I'm just standing by the window right now because we got some good lighting. We have all kinds of fun stuff happening today. One of the biggest things that, if you follow me on social media, you might have already seen this, but when Holland Diane came to work with me this morning, I just filmed it just because I thought it was cute how she was walking in the door, and then Stanley surprised her. He popped out of the curtain and it was the cutest thing. So I'm gonna put the video here. It is so cute. Watch this. Let's go inside. Inside. Go in. Go in. Your bud. Is that your bud? Go get him. Go get him. Yes. Is that your bud? Wasn't that just so sweet? So Holland Diane is having her nap right now, or she's at least resting her body. She doesn't nap as easily now, and then by the afternoon she gets real tired. So sometimes I have to leave work early. Sometimes I've even like put her in the car and just kind of let her rest for a little bit so we can get through the afternoon. When you have a 14, almost 15-month-old, you have to try and do certain things. But anyway, to get through while you're also trying to run a doll shop. But our big thing here is Linda is in the doll shop. She is very busy working on our EJMO. But in our recent doll haul, we got several dolls. One of them was very suspicious to me. It is a reproduction of an antique. It is not an antique. It is made to look like an antique, but it's what we call a fake. Not an artist doll, not something that was made in the likeness of an antique by an artist and signed and done ethically. This is a fake doll. And one of the reasons that I know that is we're going to talk about it is because you're going to see certain characteristics on it that show that it was made to look like a fake. And then also the collector that I bought them from, she inherited this collection from her grandmother, and the majority of all the dolls in the collection were all antique, and there were, I think, 4 or 5 that were not antique, and they looked like they were all made in around the 1970s, which is when a lot of the fakes came out of Europe. They were making a ton of them and importing them into the US and selling them as antiques when they're really not. The good news about this is you can tell. I've seen a couple good fakes, but for the most part, you can just tell. And we're gonna show you so that it doesn't happen to you. It's pretty hard for it to happen to you because the signs and what the fakes look like, they look like fakes. You can just tell. And I hate to keep saying you can tell because sometimes it's hard to tell, especially if you're new at this, but we're going to show you and we're going to talk about it. So I think that that's a really interesting thing to talk about. Don't let this conversation at all scare you or make you afraid to buy something, or if you have something and you have been loving it for a lot of years and then you find out it's a fake or whatever, sometimes that can like ruin stuff for you. Don't let that happen, or try not to. This is just what is happening here in my doll shop, and I want to just share as much information as possible. So I just hope it's helpful. And oh, our lunch just showed up too. So we're gonna have lunch and then we're gonna go talk about the dolls. But it's a touchy subject. But I got these dolls in and it's hard for me not to share and talk about. So hopefully we learn a little something. And then, yeah, and then we'll see where the day goes. So I'm going to go get lunch, and then we're going to go see what Linda's up to. We are so fortunate to be here with Linda Wall, who is a master doll maker with the Doll Artisan Guild, and she knows everything there is to know about doll making and the ethics behind it. Did you just laugh?
Yes, I did.
I think you do. She says she's still learning. I think she does. I think her dolls are absolutely magnificent, and she has reached the highest level that you can get in the Doll Artisan Guild. So her credentials stand behind it, but she has been at her craft for, Linda, how long?
38 years.
38 years. So she's been working on it a long time, but this is a fascinating subject. And Linda, thank you so much for chatting about this with us.
It's going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. Yeah, we're going to talk about multiple things, but basically what happened is these dolls in the center came to us in a collection of antique dolls. And the girl who sold them to us, her grandmother said that these were definitely antique dolls. And the crowning jewel, the one that they thought was worth the most money, was this Jameau right here. And when I picked her up, I thought, gosh, this is so interesting. I'm looking at it. And at first I thought it was like a repainted antique because the inside of the head is dirty. They have, the wig cap is antique fabric and it's on an antique body. And then I realized this is a fake. Where do we start?
Where do we start? Okay, first of all, you can look at the bisque. And this is the color. I mean, she's sort of an orange color versus a pink. And the Jameau is, they're pink. And let's get a real one over here.
We have a real one to compare.
Let's make sure she's stable though. You can just tell.
Yeah.
You have to, the best way is go to many, many shows, look at many, many dolls. But you can immediately, when you get the two together, you know. But look at the difference in the eyebrows. These are not correctly painted. There's no shading here. She's just blah. And if you notice, look at the detail here in the lips. On most antiques, they always say accent lines. That's what we call accent lines right there. And they have them right at the top of the upper lip. And then usually we have depending on the doll, a strong center line. This one has an open, they call it, it's not an open mouth, but it's painted like it's open mouth. See, it's divided. The color is painted around it. So even though they didn't clean it off, it looks like it's white, but it's not. It's a cream color. But just looking at the dolls, look at the shape of the eyelashes, the slant. There's about probably 5 or 6 more on the top. And look at how much cleaner and crisper this one is. You can see this one starts and it goes up to here. This one is pointing here. So the slant on these eyelashes is wrong. This doll definitely was painted by 2 different people at the factory. You can tell this angle here. And a lot of times this person probably was a left-handed person. And she was a little bit more of a novice. It was more blunt right here. But if you look at how fine these are and how many, also look at there is what we call the eye dot right in the corner of the eye. She has shading in her nose. Look at the difference in the stroke. This is like blah. It's just, there's no feathering. I mean, they're very nicely painted, but this needs more of a shadow brow. And there's no hairs coming out here. On Jameau's, this is always very characteristic. Those long brows, hairs coming out over the shadow brow. Also, the strokes right here in the middle.
This is all very fascinating, and when you start getting into it, you can really see it.
Okay, and the other thing is, I want you to notice that if you drew a line straight up, look at where these eyebrows start. How much further in on the nose. If I put there, compared to here.
Yeah.
They're wider, and they go out further on her. So right there, looking at her brows, her lashes, not alone her color. The only way you can learn this is by studying your dolls and going to many, many shows and looking at the really good dolls. Look at the coloring, the beautiful cheeks.
Right.
This one, like I said, is real white. It's almost on the German colors, but not heavy enough. And
Let's look at I wanted to show everybody because the inside is dirty.
and this is really easy to do. You just take it out to the sand pile or the dirt pile and then dust it off and rub some more. And you can make
Look
anything.
At that wig cap. Look at the antique fabric used on this wig cap.
Yes. And
or it might even
it might be an antique wig that they've taken off of another doll, but they didn't even put a paint on this poor little doll. It's just a wig cap over it.
I know.
So she was,
Let's talk about the markings, though, because that is a huge thing with the Doll Artisan Guild and anybody that is creating a reproduction doll. This one doesn't have any markings at all.
Has no markings at all. And so when you look at it, you also look at this line here, the cleaning of it. But on the markings, if you're a member of the guild, you are trying to be honest. We are not trying to put out any fakes. We're putting reproductions out there for the enjoyment of the people and for our enjoyment.
Right.
And usually that's how I started, was for my enjoyment. But we will always sign our dolls.
Yes,
right
so
here.
I pulled over. Here's one
mine.
of your beautiful creations right here. This is a portrait Jameau.
And I have my signature on there, and I also have the date. And so anybody that puts a doll into the competition for a Doll Artisan Guild, this is the first thing we look for, is that you've signed it. If you haven't signed it, you automatically don't go in.
Right.
And it's put, we cover it with masking tape, so when we're judging, we do not know who did the doll. You can see I have my insignia, which is the horseshoe with the puppy toes inside. And it's like a flower. And then my name, and then the date. And now we put the month, which is like today is 02, and then a slash. And then we have to put the year, the whole year, because if we didn't do that, that would mean that this was our creation, this was our doll that we sculpted or whatever. It's not an original. So it's not like 02, it's not my second creation.
I think that's really fascinating.
The other thing is, you can also see the body sizes are pretty close. But on reproductions, depending on the porcelain, okay, some porcelain shrinks a little more than others, but some porcelain shrinks a third or 33%.
So the head is going to be smaller.
Yes. So if you know that, you can also say, I've never seen that size.
Right.
Also know that, what sizes did they come in? And if this is like 2 or 3 inches smaller than what they produce, that could be a clue too. That's how I started out, and when I couldn't get any answers. And I realized that porcelain shrunk, so, okay.
Quick question on the bodies, though. Typically, in the Doll Artisan Guild, and when you're making your antique reproductions, do you put them on antique bodies?
Oh, no.
So this is, again, because this was on an antique body, I thought, what are they trying to do here?
Yeah, so they put it on a beautiful antique body. And how can you tell it's an antique? Well,
Or we have
this is a resin body.
Here, we have that one over there.
This is a
reproduction.
But let's look at the body. It's a little smoother. Most of the time it's a different color. It is more of a flesh tone color. And the antiques are this beautiful, I think it's a marble, and then it also has aging on it. Now we can get aging on them. You got to be careful. And you could age one of these bodies. Look at the quality on the hands. There's a big difference. One's smoother than the other.
Now this doll right here is a beautiful reproduction made by LYNDA MARX, and it is signed on the back with her signature. So this is what we call do we say authorized reproduction, or do we just say reproduction?
It's a reproduction.
It's a reproduction.
It's really, she's claiming her work, and that's good. And we are not trying to put these dolls out, but a lot of times these dolls cost a lot of money. And if you want them out and you want to have fun with them and keep them, like some people put them in chairs and they have grandchildren over, you don't panic. But if I had this Jamo in a rocking chair, my grandchild come over, I would freak out.
Right.
So even, you know.
Oh, we love them. We've sold, I don't even know how many of your portrait Jamos.
And they're fun. They're fun to play with.
If you know what you're buying.
Know what you're buying.
Because the lady that sold this, she her whole life thought this was an antique Jamo, and she enjoyed it, and that's okay, and it's wonderful. But if she bought it as an antique, then that's
a different
not,
that's a different story. And it's sad that she enjoyed it, so that's
so it's fine. Let it go.
Here's another definite reproduction. You can just, it screams.
This came in the same collection. This one screams the ones that they made in the 1970s like crazy. Mm-hmm. It just looks like those kind.
They put this on an antique shoulder plate to get it to fit on this body, which is a leatherette body. You can feel the difference, and you can almost see the sheen. And they were selling these a lot back then. And all you had to do was stuff them. And you can see this is not stuffed properly. A good leather body is as firm can be. Mm-hmm. And they're definitely leather. And look at the difference in stitching. Beautiful stitching. This is just machine stitched. And I'll bet you this one even has gussets.
Let's see what a gusset is. That was on my list of newbie terms that we were going to explain.
How can I get it?
And we can show the gusset on this one too.
Okay. Yeah, the gussets. We call these gussets. They're openings, so it makes it movable.
Yeah. So
she could sit. If without this, she wouldn't be able to sit at all.
Right.
This is called a collarette, and it's just a piece of leather that helps hold the shoulder plate, and this is what a shoulder plate is. This happens to be...
There's the collarette on Linda's reproduction, right there.
Mm-hmm. This happens to be composition.
I noticed that. I think that this perhaps was added. Because
I think this was added later in whatever they've taken the head off. These are porcelain arms, so that really, you think, okay. But there's,
It's almost shaped like a brew body.
Mm-hmm. Probably could have been, just not marked.
It's just very interesting, and you can see the difference between the two. Also, this one, the painting, talk about dull painting. This one, you said you think it was just fired once.
It is what we call one-fired doll. All they did was what on the eyebrows, and then a couple little eyelashes. There's no definition on them, okay? There's no shading or accents.
On the lips.
No shading on the nose dots.
Look at those lips.
I know.
And then we're going to just pan over to Linda's, and you can see the shading, the lip liner, or the other Linda MARX.
Yeah,
and you can see her lip liner.
And see, she did the shading in the mouth. And then these accent lines are very, very faint on the top and bottom. She also has shading in her nostrils, her eye dots. She has the eyeshadow, and they call that shadowing. Some of them have this mauve, some of them have like a purple. How do you know that? You have to do the research in your books.
Right.
And get an original, which we consider an antique, an original, because that's what we're reproducing.
So this one came in the haul. This one came in the haul. I'm not going to say reproduction. They are fakes because they were sold to this lady as a fake. Now here's another fake. The eyes and everything you can just kind of really
eyebrows.
Tell. But again, it's on another antique body.
And they tried, and it's on a sort of a modern, has a little modern dress on it, which was nothing unusual back then. They went and they would the doll shows were just full of bodies and dresses for people, and they would go and they would have a nude doll, which some of us have quite a few, and you want a dress. And so they would just put a little dress on it to put it and to display it.
These ones also came in the same collection. These ones I thought were interesting just to compare the bisque, because
Right here.
the colors of the bisque makes a big difference when you're talking about an antique versus a reproduction.
Look at the difference in the eyebrows, the eyebrow color. You can see the shadow under the eyebrow versus this one has none. The coloring on the cheeks, everything about, when you look at an antique, if you've looked at a lot of them, you'll know immediately. And that doll will always talk to you. If you're searching for a doll, do your research so when you see that doll, you'll know what to look for.
Exactly. Now, there's one thing we really need to discuss too, because this isn't like a conversation to get people
to be afraid,
or scared, or think that their reproductions are now wrong or anything.
Oh, I think reproductions are wonderful because I love them. I have dolls that I would never be able to afford, nor would I want them, because I have them to enjoy them. And I think 38 years ago, I had a woman called Peggy Hightower, and she said, I was just starting collecting. She says, don't collect for money or for the resale. Collect for the love. And if you love the doll, no matter whether it's a little AM or whether it's a little all bisque, if you love it, then love it.
Right.
And I know, like this woman, she loved this doll.
Right.
So there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the sad part is that she probably paid too much money for it.
Exactly.
Just remember, there's a big difference between a Jameau, a portrait Jameau, and a reproduction portrait Jameau.
Right. So your reproduction portrait Jameaus are under $1,000.
Right.
And now an antique, a real antique, will be thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm. So you can, what I have seen, antique collectors will come into class and they will sew and they will have what we call a traveling doll or a play doll. And they can play with this and dress this doll.
Right.
Where I don't think I'd be carrying my portrait Jameau on the airplane too much.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So
when you're buying a reproduction doll from doll artisan guild or an artist, they should always sign their work.
Well, there's another reason they want to sign their work. If their work's good enough to put out there,
right,
maybe someday somebody will be searching for that art, that person's doll.
Right.
Like people are starting to collect certain people's names. And that's beautiful because their work is gorgeous.
It's like, it's fan art. It's fan art. You are a fan of that doll, which is why you're creating
that doll.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's beautiful.
So enjoy your dolls.
Right.
And when I first got my first antique doll, it was a composition because that's all I could afford. And I love that doll, but I moved on. Just don't be afraid to admit, I messed up, because all of us have. I guarantee.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness.
It's scary. So those dolls have gone, to a better home, and I have since sold them and bought something else that I really wanted. So just think of this as a hobby, and that's exactly what it is.
It's for fun. That's exactly what it is.
Make it for fun. Don't keep it as fun.
In my beginning doll collecting video, one of my top tips was enjoy the hobby. It's like generally when you buy a car and you drive it off the lot, it's not worth the same price that you paid. You buy it to enjoy the car and to drive it around and have fun. It's kind of the same with dolls.
This little Googly.
Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about her too.
This Googly definitely is a reproduction. You can tell by her painting. Now it's painted in the right spots and that, but it's the strokes and the color again, the bisque, you can tell.
We actually have a real run up front. I could go grab it.
Yeah, but they were not on porcelain bodies.
Yeah, usually when you find a doll, especially a big doll, on an all porcelain body, that's a red flag.
It's a big, all bisque are usually this big, and they will be all porcelain. So know that this one, and years ago, I'm telling you, when this started out, they had molds out there, and this is what people would put their dolls on because they were cheap.
So I'm going to, just because for the sake of the video, I'm going to go grab our antique one.
Also, you can tell by looking.
Oh, yeah, look.
I mean, look at this. And it's not, the bodies aren't even lined. In modern dolls now, we line all of our bodies so they don't squeak.
Let's look at the markings here. Now, I believe this one actually was signed, or maybe not. I don't see a signature either. No.
What's that?
Guess search. This one isn't signed either. And this one came with the other ones. So,
And just because it has the marking of the JDK 221, you know, doesn't mean that it's an antique.
well,
Because-
right. It should be signed down there.
Yes, because what's happened is they've taken that antique and made a mold out of it.
Okay, I'm going to go get ours, and then we're going to look at the two.
Okay.
Okay, I went and grabbed, this is my mother's Googly. This is a 131, and this is a 221 reproduction. But it still shows the difference.
Mm-hmm. Look at how cute the eyebrows are.
I know. Looks like HOLLAND.
Mm-hmm. And some of them have no eyelashes. This one didn't.
Look at that. Yeah.
They have the smiley lips. But look at composition.
Composition.
And composition is a wood type.
It's a mixture. Every doll company had their own
Mixture.
recipe, but you can think of it as like an extremely hard paper mache,
Sort of the unbreakable doll.
which they do break, but
Yeah, they do. But,
they do last pretty well.
and then this brings up a subject. If you have dolls and you transport them from a wet environment, be careful, because if they come to a dry environment,
Right.
they will craze on you. And crazing is when it
lifts. We showed that a little.
It lifts,
Here, I'm just gonna. Oh, here on the Shirley Temple. There, you can see the crazing. That's the little cracks and the little lines. That's light crazing. This really isn't bad, but that's what crazing is. So I think that was fun, Linda. Thank you for sharing your expertise.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Glad to.
Yeah. Do you enjoy just chatting dolls and talking about this kind of thing?
That's why I laughed when you said I'm expert. I'm always learning. Every time I teach a seminar, I have to do research and I want to know. And I learn. And you learn from your students too. That's why I think I've been in it for so long, because it's still fun.
It's fascinating. Yep, it's fascinating. We hope that this was helpful. We've touched on this in the past, but since I got these dolls in this last week, I thought this was a fantastic opportunity to have a discussion and talk about it a little bit. So we hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave us a comment and be sure to subscribe. We love having you on all of our videos. Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Also, before I go, there's just one last thing. So HOLLAND DIANE has locked herself in the kitchen, so we got to look at that. HOLLAND DIANE. Where's HOLLAND DIANE? What are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah, you're wild? Are you wild? Go see what Stanley's doing. Stanley's enjoying his lunch. Stanley's enjoying his lunch. He's been taking care of you all day. He's so good with her. But the last thing I wanted to say with this video and just everything that I share is that doll collecting is for everybody. And the only thing that you need to enjoy dolls and to be a part of this hobby is the love of dolls. That's it. So keep enjoying your dolls, no matter what kind of dolls you have, no matter what kind of dolls you collect, no matter what kind of dolls you can afford. Anything goes. Anything goes. Just enjoy your dolls and have fun with it. That's what we do here. And that's what we want to preach and to share and to do. From our dollhouse to yours and our little HOLLAND DIANE, who's smacking our cup of noodles. Yes, and she's so busy in her little dollhouse. We hope you enjoy, and we'll see you on the next one.